I always had a point to prove because I was labelled so much growing up that, oh yeah, trouble, hey, this guy coming along, he's trouble. And I kind of brought a lot of shame on my family back in Ireland, being such a small, tight-knit community. Kind of 18, after 3 years of training, I went out on my own, started building houses in Ireland. And at the age of like 22, I was running like a 40-man gang of peers that were double my age and younger than me. Do you know me, just a to and fro, 9 months in planning for a one-bed house in Solihull. It's like...
What advice would you have for that individual?
Don't go on social media.
Apart from looking at your stuff.
Apart from looking at me and yours.
Before we kick this episode off, I want to let you know about our next show that will be taking place in Manchester on Wednesday, the 4th of September at Manchester City Stadium, the Etihad. Doors to the show will open from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. We have 2 keynote stages, multiple exhibitors, and lots of opportunity for networking. Details to the show is in the description. Tickets are free. We hope to see you there. Welcome to episode 11 of the Property Developer Show, the podcast. Today, I'm joined by Lorcan Donaldson, someone that I've been following recently on LinkedIn, and some of the technical information that he's putting out there from a bricklaying perspective, as well as a build perspective, as well as a developer perspective, is, next to, it's the top level. It's good stuff, mate. It's really technical. It's what a lot of people aren't doing on social media. And I think most people don't even understand what you're talking about most of the time, but you give more context with what you're describing in terms of the videos, and it's brilliant to see. And if anyone doesn't know who you are, they certainly will today. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me on.
No, pleasure. So I think obviously you sent me a lot of information on the journey. And I think it's a phenomenal journey, going from the tools to developing, as well as obviously keeping your hand sort of on the tools in a way. Obviously, we were just discussing that. So for the people at home that don't know, obviously, who Lorcan is, who are you?
So Lorcan is a guy from Ireland originally, from the west of Ireland, a place called Shannon, County Leitrim. Most people know Ireland, they go to Dublin. They don't really go over to Leitrim, it's in the west. But yeah, left school at 15, nice and early. Education wasn't really the thing for me. Being spoken at instead of spoken to was kind of the way I found education. And they kind of used to like to put me over in the corner because I was disruptive and always wanted to be doing something that wasn't learning. So yeah, I had permission from my mum. Something you can do in Ireland is to leave school early once you have permission from your parents. Still went back and sat my junior cert, which is like your first exam at 16, just about scraped the pass on that one. But that kept her happy. But from 15, basically just on the sites, through my granduncle, would have been a general builder, so jack of all trades. And yeah, really went from there and kind of stepped into the world of brick and block laying through an apprenticeship kind of thing, but it wasn't an official apprenticeship. It was kind of like just turn up and you get the best education on site. So we went from that and kind of 18, after 3 years of training, I went out on my own, started building houses in Ireland.
Nice. And since then, sort of, what kind of deals have you been focusing on? Because obviously, I know for the listeners, obviously more context, you've obviously got the bricklaying team that you're still operating. You obviously saying you're trying to stay off the tools, but sometimes get sucked back into it. But so you're doing that alongside obviously developing houses as well. So how's that kind of evolved, obviously, from just the bricklaying side of things to actually then also doing your own projects?
So again, like you'll have most people turn up on your podcast, they have a massive passion for property. Kind of started through just being up around Dublin and part of my bricklaying journey and just seeing the wealth that the bricklaying barons had, but they all kind of had property at the back of it. So they all used the money that they were generating on site and like just pushed it over towards property and parked it there. And then just I always kind of had this eye for like fixing stuff, but it had to be property. I cannot fix a car, cannot fix anything mechanical, but I can put a property back together. And obviously the worse condition it's in, the better. So we went from the bricklaying. I could just kind of see the barons all parking their cash in assets, and that got me thinking. But unfortunately, Ireland hit a major crash in 08-09. Celtic Tiger went. Obviously, house prices, people getting 120% mortgages. It just was never going to last. So that brought me over to Australia, which further, believe it or not, like I was at a certain expert level of bricklaying, but going to Australia just absolutely turbocharged that, because it's a different world out there for brickwork and how gangs are ran. And at the age of like 22, I was running like a 40-man gang of peers that were double my age and younger than me. But just because I had that drive and just hunger to keep getting ahead and always be at the forefront of whatever I'm doing, I always give it 100%.
How do you think you navigated that? Because that's quite an interesting point. Obviously, being 22, managing people that are double your age. You know, how did you appear you're older than you actually were? Like, what was the sort of approach?
Yeah, so my appearance here. So I am 37 as we sit here now, and 2nd of June I turned 38. But
you've looked like this since you were 22.
Yeah, with the beard and all. But I don't know how this is going to come across, but I'm very aggressive in nature, where I don't suffer BS, and I will just push. And if someone needs to be pushed out of the way, I'll push them out of the way just to clear the path so we can really accelerate to where we need to be. And I kind of, as I fell into a job in Australia, the lads that I had to kind of fall in line, you know what I mean, turn up, doing that for a couple of months, and then they seen the potential where I was like, you know what I mean, saying, oh, if we do this a little bit different, we might increase the count by 200-300 bricks a day, you know what I mean, per gang. And there were little pockets of 5 and 2s. So they could see that, and they could see like the numbers just working in my head, and they could just see the aggression of not being aggressive towards the lads, but aggressive in nature, as in pushing and just trying to push everyone, constantly pushing. And that still follows me through, even into my marriage. I'm pushing the wife, or I'm trying to push my kids to just be the best that they can be. Because just going back to school, I don't feel like that push was, you know what I mean? If I had a better push in school, they might have figured out like that the education's not for him. Let's push him more towards like woodwork and crafts and things with his hands. But you know what I mean? So now I believe in just pushing everyone to the best of their ability. And that's why I've retained the lads that have worked for me 8 years now.
Do you think, I'm trying to keep it obviously in the context of the whole property space, and I think it will hopefully sort of this part of the conversation will develop into that side of obviously how you transition. But do you think that there's some sort of natural ability behind, because, you know, I couldn't name, 5 22-year-olds that are obviously managing people double their age. That it's a very niche kind of situation. Do you think, or maybe there's a double-edged sword to this, a double approach in this question. Do you think there was a natural ability to sort of get that, ambition towards what you want to do, the drive, the focus, I want to push people? Or do you think that was kind of a learned skill through your life? Maybe there was some, obviously it was difficult through school, and I was the same as you. I never really liked the whole school approach to things. I was always, the class clown, and that's often what my reports saying that. But in business, I've flourished, and I like the phrase, if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, believe all its life that it's stupid. Yeah. And that was me through school. So I'm just curious to understand whether you think it's a natural kind of take that you've had towards work, or whether...
Yeah, I see where you're coming from with that question, and it kind of goes as well to say that I've always got a point to prove. As a young lad growing up in Ireland, bricklayer, earning a lot of money, and when you've got no avenue to channel that money, it gets channeled towards the wrong things, which was drink. So I had not a problem with drink. I would be called a social alcoholic, as they call them in Ireland, like a weekend drinker. And I kind of ended up getting in a lot of trouble, just through, again, being so aggressive and mixing that with alcohol. It doesn't really tend to go well. So I knew from a very early age that drink wasn't meant to be a part of my life. And thankfully, the last 3.5 since my wife became pregnant with my first child, I have managed to park that and not partake in any alcohol activities, as we like to put on them, but the name we like to put on them. But again, I always had a point to prove, because I was labelled so much growing up that, oh yeah, trouble, hey, this guy coming along, he's trouble. And I kind of brought a lot of shame on my family back in Ireland, being such a small, tight-knit community. And I kind of, when I got away from that, and when I moved out of that town, I kind of seen the bigger picture of the world when I got away to Australia. Now, I'd done a lot of drinking in Australia, a lot of partying, but when I came back, I kind of tried to settle down, Do you know what I mean? I had met Ashton at this stage when I came back. Came back from Australia, tried to get things going in Ireland, still on its knees. So thankfully, I've got a cousin in Birmingham who runs like a finishings company, so all the wet trades, and he brought me over and gave me a start. So that's kind of where that would lead on to my journey starting in the UK.
Nice. So you think, I suppose then what I've kind of gauged from that is it's the element of having to prove a point. That's what has been driving you to the point you are today. Because I mean, to spin what you're spinning for a normal person, you know, is often to be on social media is a full-time job. Yeah. To be running, a bricklaying company alongside that with 8 lads, is that right? And also doing property investment yourself. You know, there's got to be some drive, obviously, that there is there.
Couple into that, flying in and out of Ireland,
of course,
twice a week.
Yeah.
And again, it is the drive that I haven't got anything to prove to anyone now, because the trouble all stopped when I was like 21, and all the embarrassment that I brought on my family, it's all memories. It all fades away. You don't think that when you're in the moment. You think, oh geez, my life is going downhill, but that all forgotten about. So I haven't got a point to prove to anyone now, but it's just something that I have within me now. It's just this drive and passion to just keep getting ahead, and just keep trying to get to the next level, even though I don't know where that next level is, or I don't know what is at the next level, but I know it's just going to be more challenges that I'm going to have to try and keep going and going. It's like my father-in-law always says to me, he says, I don't think you're ever going to stop. Like you get to a certain level and you think you're happy, and then the next day you've went off and bought something else because you just feel empty. It's like after my last commercial conversion, which was 9 units, it was so stressful up to a point, and then it was finished and all the relief, and we'd refinanced out and everything was happy, and I was just empty for like a couple of weeks until I got my next project, and he's all happy and buzzing and going 100 mile an hour again. So I just think it's just that drive is inbuilt in me. Yeah, from school not going right, trouble mixed with the drink and mixed with everything else, so the trouble and everything, to get out of that and then know that the drive is what keeps you sane, keeps you out of trouble, keeps you just driving to the next level.
I get that. I had a financial services business that I sold start of 23, and losing the purpose of running that business was, I say a difficult time. I was fine. I was healthy, that sort of stuff, still plodded on, but mentally I wasn't in a place that I am, now. We've got the podcast, got property deals, I've got the property developer show. I've got spinning lots of plates, and I'm in a better place now. And I think that's often a common trait, particularly with property developers and, business owners in general. Typically they're usually doing a mixture of both. Do you think there is an end to that? Like, what is it that you're chasing, do you think?
Obviously, is there an end? I don't think so, because there's a guy that does the plastering for me, and he says he thinks if I ever stop working, I'll be dead within 3 months, because he just says that it's like my day starts at 4 o'clock. I'm out running, then I try and get my social media done, and then I'm going to site either to the lads or to whatever project we're on, trying to get all the paperwork done, the health and safety, the accounts, the finances, making sure it's all a one-stop shop. And he just says if it ever stopped, he thinks I'd be dead within 3 months. But that, again, I don't think it can ever stop. I don't think I'm ever going to get to a level where I turn back and say, oh, I'm happy to. I'll just keep going, because it's something like, I think I'm living my best life now. Since I kind of started the whole social media thing, I can see how I'm reaching people and helping them. And that's another purpose that I never knew that I wanted to fulfill, and now I do want to fulfill. Hence why it's so technical on Facebook and the social media stuff, is because it's all, do you want to come and find out how to make 200 grand? It's not like just giving them something for nothing, and just helping them understand that's a little ticking part of developments that you will never understand unless you are in the development. Yeah, it's kind of like the whole social media thing is where I'm trying to get so technical, as you said at the start, is because this whole thing of like, come and find out how to make 200 grand and be a millionaire overnight. And look, it can work. Like, anyone can be a developer, anyone. But a little thing that I like to say is you can do an accountancy course over the weekend, but you're not turning up on Monday morning and becoming an accountant. Whereas developing all the different strategies are kind of so like, you go and do this course and you're just going to wake up the morning after the course and you're that person. it's just what I'm trying to get out there is you've got so many hurdles to jump over, finance, even down to surveying windows, and it can all just go horribly wrong on you and cost you a phenomenal amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what's sold. What I'm trying to give to people is just, I offer a consultation business, but the amount of free stuff that I'm throwing out there, you should be able to gauge whether you want to do this or not.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the whole money that's attached to property brings a lot of people in,
mm-hmm.
and it doesn't scare them enough to put them off for what's coming further down the line when you actually get into it.
Yeah.
So, okay, rocking up to the hotel, doing the course, but to get from the course to refinancing out, the stress level that's in between them 2 points, it's not for everyone.
So really, the answer to my question then is you're not going to be stopping anytime soon, and the next step for you is to go from obviously doing what you're spinning, and but also providing that value for people out there. That I suppose is what this podcast is about. It's providing informative, and it's good to see probably a side of you today that you can't really put it across on LinkedIn and hear your actual story. Obviously a lot of stuff that you're sharing is the technical side of things, and it is absolutely brilliant. And I'll probably put you on the list of the likes of Adam Lawrence and people like that are really providing technical information that not so much for new people, but more people that are established and want to kind of get to that next level. It's increasing that knowledge and that piece that not many people do. It's all that low level entry, that kind of thing that's out there for the masses. But it's the technical stuff that helps you sort of get to that level. And I think by the sounds of it, I mean, I'm 100 miles an hour, but I think you're 150 miles an hour by the sounds of it. An absolute credit to you. So spinning the plates for sure. So to go from obviously running the bricklaying side of things to then shifting into property, obviously there's a lot of natural progression in it. Obviously understanding how a building works, that's obviously a vital thing. But I suppose there's still, like you say, the finance, the putting the deals together, that sort of stuff. How did that kind of come about for you? What were the stepping stones that you took?
So the massive stepping stone that I found, and it was like a barrier to entry, it took me like 2 years to build a credit file when I came to the UK. So obviously 100 miles an hour, I was like, oh, let's go and buy property and that. And then went to my first broker and he was like, oh, your credit file, you need to build it. So I was like, oh God. Right. So we were building the credit file for a couple of years, constantly like just Rightmove was the new Facebook. Like when I came across Rightmove, when it was kind of like, that's 10 years ago or whatever it was just like, oh my God, like look at all this prop. And I was like just analysing photos on Rightmove, analysing floor plans, like, oh, I'd move that wall, and if we could take out the chimney breast and put in gallows brackets and remove all that and not touch the outside, and all these different things were just like swirling around my head. I was doing that for like 2 years until I could actually get my property. And I was really, really lucky with the first one that I stumbled across. It's a 3-bed semi with a lovely corner plot and like a garage attached to it. And as soon as we rocked up with that, I was like, that garage has got to go. That is a house. Like there's so much value here. And I was like, is anyone seeing this? Like, am I the only one? But obviously I didn't know the pain that I was going to go through with the planning, trying to get that one bed on the side. So this was before, never had done a course, it wasn't really even a thing back then. Like it's just, I think social media has just like pulled the property furu, like fake guru, like it's just so easy to pretend to have done all this and like sell it. So none of that was around. And thankfully it wasn't, because I probably might have bought into that and be like, oh, and then I wouldn't have went through the pain to know how hard it is right from the start.
Let me just pause this episode for a moment to quickly introduce you to our episode sponsor, the Property Finance Collective. Transforming visions into reality requires not just a great idea, but the right financial support and the best possible team around you. Specialising in development finance, bridging finance and commercial mortgages, the Property Finance Collective are there to help you navigate complex markets to secure the funding you need, as well as being part of your team that you can rely on. With a flair for creative deal structuring, they tailor solutions that fit precisely with your project's demands, ensuring speed, efficiency and flexibility. They want to help you make the impossible possible. Now let's get back to the episode. So yeah, no, I see a lot of people that have good success in property. They come from it from like an organic perspective. It's not so much like about, I've been on a course and then I'm investing in property. Like yourself, I've done the bricklaying, I've done the building the houses. I'm looking at this house thinking, as I can get another unit on the side of this. I think that naivety in a way helps people progress into like the property industry and sort of get that momentum going. Because I think if you knew the realities of trying to get a house on the side of that property, you've probably been like, nah, I'm not going to bother with that. Right. Maybe not in your case, given that your natural ability to jump into things, I imagine, head first.
Yeah.
But I think it gives people that naive level, kind of gives them the push into it. And obviously 10 years later, like you're obviously putting deals together now, such as the bank, which I'm sure we can go into more detail with that.
Yeah, definitely. And that's it. No, the first deal though, unknowns to me, was going to bring me so far through a property channel. Like we had the planning. We also had title splits, trying to negotiate with the bank, because I never understood that. Like, obviously the bank had their first charge on it, but I wanted to split the land in half, obviously devaluing what their charge was. And the negotiations we had to go through to get them to agree to that and go, look, it will be sound. He's refurbed the 3-bed house that's got your interest in it. That's going to be sold, and we'll clear your first charge. But like the title split, everything that went into that, like the separate services coming in, just a to and fro, 9 months in planning for a 1-bed house in Solihull. It's like, and I was like, this is just too slow. This is just not. And then what kind of helped me in my property career, and I hope people can gauge this in the audience as well, is going through thinking if you're going to go and do new build, understanding how long that process takes and the amount of people you have to involve in getting that from field to home. And I understand that because my background is groundworks, bricklaying, substructure work, like typical Irish job, like in the ground, just the hardest job you can find. Go and do it because it'll give you the most purpose. So I understand all that element. So what I'm trying to open up people on my consultations is like taking these fancy drawings that they've had and basically just putting them in the bin and going, look at the fabric of the building you already have. These are investment properties, like people trying to make HMOs work and that. And I'm like, you're sticking on like $100,000 extension here to gain a few extra meters on the room, which isn't going to really make any difference to your rent roll. Let's look at the shell, see what we can do inside it. Like tear down the walls and just reconfigure the space. And then just cut that headache. Because people who jump in is like, I want to go and build new houses. But do you really? Because that's a step above where most developers are. You want to build new build at scale. That's a different scenario.
I can, I'm 13 months into getting planning permission for 3 houses at the moment. So yeah, I feel the pain on not quite a 1-bed, but it's the planning system it doesn't work. And that's obviously why we've got a shortfall of whatever it is, 4.3, 4.6 million houses in the UK. And it's the cause and effect of that obviously it's the root of, planning permission, building houses, the fact that obviously massive developers often sit on land and, there's a lot of moving parts to it. But I suppose taking what, you're alluding to, taking a house and its shell and then carving it up to become what you need it to be, whether it be turning a 4-bed house into a 6-bed HMO all en suite, or it's having that creative approach. And I suppose that not a lot of people, I guess, are blessed with that kind of natural ability.
So can I break it down really simply for you? Of
course,
right? Yeah. So let's say we need 10 square meter rooms to reduce a kitchen, living communal. Okay? So 60 square meters in your room. Let's allow 2 square meters for your bathrooms. That's 6 to 72 square meters. Most houses are nearly 100 square meters, between 85 to 100 square meters. So you've got the floor space to make the rooms creatable, if that's even a word. And then it is just reconfiguring your natural daylight. Like we're putting kitchens, bathrooms in the darkest, in the core of the building is where I always like to put them. And then just front and back in it. Do you know what I mean? And then just trying to be so creative with room sizes and quad bathroom layouts, cutting off corners, making sure the toilet fits beside the shower, so it all flows in kind of a natural state of living.
So when you're looking at properties, then are you first looking at the floor plan, and then if the floor plan think okay, because obviously on floor plans you can't see where the structural walls are or load bearing walls. So, but then I'm assuming you're doing that prior to viewings, or are you doing that on the viewings? So
I like to explain it like I'll nearly look at the floor plans before I look at the fabric of the building. Because the fabric building, like cracking or anything like that, that can all be fixed, underpinning, it can all be done. It's the inside and the window layout. Because if I attack the windows from the outside, I'm going to trigger planning to the front facade.
Of course.
And all them things. It's kind of like, I like to take it like a drone view. So pop off the roof and look in. It's like looking into the box at everything that's going on in your business. As they say, work outside the box, not in the box. It's basically the same thing as I do with floor plans. And I kind of just see the walls just like a Tetris kind of scenario. Like the walls just kind of start making shapes. And I go, oh, you can move that. And then, because I understand the calculations on steels, and we can drop that and put in a beam. And do you know what I mean? It's and again, all these things are still cheaper than building new build. So trying to go out to achieve, if you can achieve it by putting the kitchen and the bathrooms in the core of the building, going out isn't going to help you anyway, because you're just stretching the main core of the building. So what I like to do is definitely just look into the box and then really go from there.
Makes sense. So really you're looking at it from a sort of bird's eye view.
Bird's eye all the time.
And then deciding before you've even seen the property, this is what I can potentially do with this. I can add value this way and move the walls that way. And so that, I suppose, sort of moves quite nicely onto some of the deals that you've sort of done there. Because I know you mentioned you had an actual bank deal, not necessarily the lender, the bank, but you had the bank deal. And then you've had some headaches with obviously banks, lenders, pulling the money from that. So it'd be good to go into more detail around that, and obviously what you did to rectify that situation.
So that it gets bashed about, and I've got Shane Trainer to thank for the name on this one. He named it the bank job. So it's the £1 million bank job. Yeah. Shane's a great guy. So yeah, he put that on, and I've just taken it from that, and that's what I call that deal now, is the bank job. So that was an old TSB bank. Again, this is really this deal, you could sell a course on this, on how to like navigate through things that are really going to affect your own personal life, because this was like one of the biggest deals that I had done, most number of units, over the most amount of stories, with the least amount of capital behind me. So it's a bank in Redditch. It's TSB Bank in Redditch. We converted that to 7 one-bed flats. That was converted under PD, no planning, so easy. Again,
and for people that don't know PD?
Permitted development.
Yeah.
So, and just the power of the permitted development, like that we were able to divide up the floor plate and get a flat at the back of the commercial unit. So it was one big old bank, clunky thing, just what no one could figure out. It was 5,500 square foot of floor space, including the basement. So minus 1,000 for the basement, 4,500 square foot. And we took that back to brick and put it all back together in 21 weeks.
Wow. Happy days.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So it's just like, that's 100 mile an hour as we visit everything. And I think people are listening to this, you've got to shoot from the hip and go 100 mile an hour in property, because what's always ticking away in the background is the interest, whether that be private, bridging, bank of mum and dad's, if you're going to charge interest, it's all just, it's so relevant that, and you see my posts on Facebook, I always bring it back to what's ticking away. Like, so our current deal is ticking at $4,500 a month. We borrow $450 for it, 1% a month. You've got that coming behind you every month. You are going to work 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Because as we go out towards the back end of that flip, I don't know what the market's going to do. I don't know where we're going to be at. We're going to have that probably finished in another 5 weeks. So that will be in a 9-week construction project. But that could be a 3-month sales process. And that's 4, 8, 12, 16, 17,000 in interest for the property being fully done, just sitting there and waiting for the market to take it away. Something I can't control, you can't control.
I'm in that situation at the moment. We had a property sold since August, and buyer messed August last year. Buyer messed around, and we're 6 months down the line. Loan renewed, that was 10 grand, 5% renewal fee. But you factor that into the figures, and you buy right to start with, and that's what I always say when I describe obviously the headache that I've got at the minute. Just if you buy right to start with, you've got the margins there for those types of situations, and they do happen. But speed is, despite it being probably the slowest industry on planet Earth, because there's too many people involved in the process. speed is of essence when delivering the project. And I think the project side of things is often where people lose time, because I suppose it's difficult sometimes, depending on what scale you're at. If you've got a QS and a project manager and a principal contractor, typically you're going to get to good time schedules. But for those that are kind of emerging out of the buy, refurb, refinance, maybe slightly bigger HMO, maybe an extension, I think they're still using them independent trades that often aren't reliable on that side. How do you find things on that side?
So, and any advice to anyone listening is don't mess your trades about, and not like going down to Magnet and Howden's and trying to really push them down to the pin of the collar on price. Don't do that with your trades, because you'll just piss them off. They'll work against you. I'm literally this like journey in the UK. I've got the same Sparky from the start, same carpenter, same plasterer. We're the bricklayers, we're the ground workers, so that doesn't change. But it, like, the price might go up a bit and I'd be like, oh, but that relationship between me and the trades is not worth me bringing in another Sparky and getting them to go against them, because I know if something's going wrong in one of my units, I can ring the Sparky and he's going over there because he knows he's got that continuation of work with me. He knows our relationship is worth more to me than if he's a couple of grand more than the other fella on one, he might be a grand less on the other. It's about playing that game and just getting to the end goal. Whereas people are like, oh, they look at the headline figures all the time. I released a post about the painting and looking at the painting as like 10,700. But when you break it down and put it through the square meterage of the property and get really technical like that, and he's got 3 coats, it worked out like £7 a meter he's getting paid. It's, you know what I mean? But people look at like the big headline figure, and then if the next fella comes in at 8 grand, that's a cracking deal. But the fella at 8 grand might take 2 weeks longer than him. And what's that 2 weeks costing him in interest? Another 2.5 grand. So he's back up to his thing. He's 2 weeks later and he might have missed the buyer. So it's all so relevant in getting technical and really stripping it back to price per square meter. And I don't think enough people talk about that. Is like, they always bash out the question, what's the build cost, or what's your price per square meter? But I can build stuff at 750 a meter. You could build stuff at 500 a meter. But our levels of finish are different. Our speed scales are different. How much time you're going to put into it. I might work 12 hours a day. You might work 16. It's just so different. But again, like the training circuit, it's just an easy thing to bash around, and it's 2.5 grand here. Or you go down to London, it might be 3.5 grand. Or you go up north and it might be 2 grand. Or, you know, it's the social media thing again, and just these forums where you can just ask a question and a generic question is asked and everyone's got an opinion. So one thing about social media is everyone's got an opinion. And is their opinion valid? Yes, to them, but not to the masses of people there that haven't really been properly educated in understanding. They're just seeing 2.5 grand a meter and they're like, oh God, that deal's not going to work. And the deal might work if they actually understood to how to apply it to their price per square meter, if you know what I mean.
That makes sense, yeah. So to someone that is trying to navigate the whole property scene, what advice would you have for that individual?
Don't go on social media.
Apart from looking at your
Apart
stuff.
from looking at me and yours. What advice? My advice would be just try and block out all the BS. Don't shiny penny it. Don't jump from one to the other. There's so many strategies, right? I do not do rent to rent. I do not do rent SA. I don't do SA. I don't do nothing. I do the nuts and the bolts of what I understand. HMO, commercial conversion, new build, and flips. That's 4 things I like to stay in my lane because I know how to execute them. The tenant thing, not really for me. Kind of like, I was kind of taught, because I heard it so much, hold on to your property and tenants, create your cash flow and get it on to the next level. But that's BS because tenants are a headache, okay? And cash flow is not always there. Tenants don't pay rent, maintenance issues, but it's not sold on the courses and it's not in the mainstream, you know, because that's something that's hard. And I actually get a lot of flack for being too honest and too open about how hard it actually is, and that I'm trying to sell consultancy and people are like, but they won't want to go near you because you're making it so hard. And I'm like, yeah, that's the whole point, is get them to really understand how hard this industry is and that you can actually lose your home at this. So if they were lucky enough to have their own home, put a first charge on it, or a second charge, because obviously behind the lender, that could go if they get this whole other side hustle because that's what property is really for everyone, is a side hustle. If I've got my bricklaying to fall back on, if the property goes wrong, you need that, it's a side hustle. It's not going to be, unless you're lucky enough to get really into it and it just accelerates for you. And some people are, and some people just aren't.
Yeah. That's something that I harp on about all the time on this podcast, is having the trading side and the investing side. I think it's vital to have both. And I think, there's definitely not enough out there on the realities of property. And like you say, stuff does go wrong. People lose their houses, people lose money. It's not guaranteed. These investors that are putting, heaps of money into these developers at 20% interest and then wonder why they never get any money back out without personal guarantees and stuff. Stuff goes wrong, and, a lot of people signing NDAs and all sorts of stuff. And you never hear about the sort of the downside of property investing. It's always the glorious stuff. And of course, there's a lot of upside to it as well. It can make you wealthy if you do it right, and if you get lucky. And it's a journey that, if you're not 100% sure on how to navigate it, you need to spend more time, I guess, which is what you're probably saying there, understanding it from the nth degree of, this is what can go wrong. This is how you can potentially do it in a really technical way, and this is potentially the results that you're ultimately going to get from this process. And I think it's refreshing to, I guess, not to most people that want to hear the quick success stuff. It's not refreshing to them to hear, but it's refreshing for, I suppose, the likes of myself that's already in the industry and sees stuff go wrong and people going bankrupt that don't talk about it, and they're selling courses the next day, and they've got projects going to liquidation, but you don't hear about that. And I think that's the downside of the industry. But obviously the flip side of that is the industry's full of people like yourself that are trying to provide genuine value, really technical value.
And be honest, why did you say I'm not getting there? Because my socials are SHIT. And that's
I never said that.
In a roundabout way. That's because I'm not a marketer, and I'm not trying to sell. What I'm trying to, let's say sell my consultancy. What I'm trying to sell is the honest side of it, and not like the headline grabber or the captions underneath and the swoosh and whatever. I'll sell. What I say is, I don't sell dreams, only reality, and that's like a little tagline under my stuff. And and if I can't sell you the reality of it, just don't buy into me at all, because what I'm going to say to you, you're not going to want to hear, and I'm going to, you know what I mean? I'm going to know that you're not fully committed to this, and you probably jump from course to course and jump from trainer to trainer and group to group, and be in so many WhatsApp groups that you feel like you're actually in property because your phone is pinging and you're looking at deals coming in. And I've got deals, they're not my deals, but I'd be in a couple of WhatsApp groups, and the deals are coming in, and then you actually follow them up, and they just turn out to be nothing. So there's like people trying to sell you stuff in property, and you're experienced property developer, and you're trying to chase up these deals because they look like a good deal. It's in a good area. It's at the right price. Well, I follow this one through. $5,000 finder's fee. Sound. Let's go with it. But you chase it up all the way to the end, and then suddenly it's all
he say.
Yeah, and it's just silence. There's no actual end to it. So we digress there. Well, but my advice to anyone starting out in property would be just look towards the people who are speaking the truth, who are not afraid to just go as raw as it seems and show you like a raw film camera footage of going around these properties that they're doing. Do you know what I mean? And nothing is staged. Just like there's sparkies, plumbers, everyone's just walking around the place. I put a post out there, like 18 lads on site. It's an aggressive environment. Do you know what I mean? I said, you put alcohol into that situation, A&E will be full. Do you know what I mean? The building site's an aggressive environment. And it's the same even when we're building on the likes of Taylor Wimpey sites and that. Like, it's just, and not to be sexist, it's just all lads. Do you know what I mean? It's just such a male-dominated environment that if you added alcohol to it, it'd be absolute fucking chaos. Do you know what I mean? So anyone getting into development need to be ready for that kind of aggression and that kind of an environment where you kind of have to match them. And I think that's why I do well in like pushing programs and meeting, not aggression with aggression, but just like being able to talk to the lads, and you know what I mean? Because you were one back when you started out, but people don't understand it's that person to person interaction that can go so wrong in property. And if you can't interact with that person who's trying to deliver that product for you, well, that's your money that's going down the pan.
Mm-hmm.
It's not their deal, it's your deal. So you need to become better at your people skills.
Yeah.
And that's something I've definitely had to work on, is my people skills.
Makes sense. I often say the people that shout the loudest are often doing the least. And that's a big truth on social media front. Interesting. I mean, we could obviously go on all afternoon and discuss a lot more and go into in-depth with stuff. But I really think people should direct themselves to your LinkedIn and Facebook account to have a look at some of the content that you're putting out there. What's your LinkedIn details?
So LinkedIn is Lorcan Donaldson. My other social handles, TikTok, Instagram, and how bad I am at socials is I just post it on Facebook and it automatically goes over to Instagram. I don't even go onto Instagram to try and upload. That's not, maybe I'm lazy at socials, but I'm so bad at it. So L Donaldson Regeneration, and then just Lorcan Donaldson. Profile picture of me and my wife. Super. That's how you find me.
We'll put all the details in the description as well.
LorcanDonaldson.com.
Super, wonderful. Well, thank you very much for coming on today. I think there's a lot to unpick for people there, and hopefully they can take something valuable from the episode. Yeah.
Thanks so much for having me, Scott. Been a pleasure.
Thank you for all the listeners at home. Obviously, there's a lot to unpick there. I think the topic of conversation went in a lot of directions there, and there's so much content and quality really from Lorcan, and really great insights to what the industry is really like from a trade and developer perspective. I think it's important to really understand that. So I hope to see you all again on the next episode. Take care. Goodbye.